How's it going, guys? So in this week's Phantom Cave video, we're going to be talking to a new Phantom Cave Community Interviews. In this week's community interview, we're going to be talking to Julie Ditrich. So Julie Ditrich is basically one of the new kids on the block. She's one of the newest female Phantom writers to actually write the Phantom, which is pretty cool. And let's get into the first question.
Hi, it's Julie Ditrich on the Phantom Cave. Hi, Bradley. Hi, listeners, and hi, viewers. Lovely to be here. Hope you're all well tonight. And let's start talking about writing for the Phantom.
How did you get to write the Phantom, and how long have you been a writer for?
So the question is, how long have I been a writer? I did a professional writing degree when I was in uni, and I studied freelance writing and also script writing. And a few years later, in the early 90s, I actually officially became a published comic book writer when I co-wrote a series for the American market in a fantasy work. So that's when I became a writer, or a comic book writer.
The second question, there's some great responses coming up in this video, and as always, Phantom Cave, myself, likes to try and do something special for each creator. So I like to basically make sure the creators, well, special themselves, and make sure they're comfortable in doing it. So the second question is, with the Phantom, what gives you the inspiration for your Phantom stories?
Gives me inspiration to write Phantom stories. Well, the first thing that I have to take into consideration is the publisher's brief. What does Glenn and Frew Publications want me to do? Are they introducing characters from other stories? Are they asking me to read vintage Phantom comics and come up with sequels for them? Are they asking me to work with particular characters or to come up with a wholly original story? So there's a lot of considerations, including the action, getting the action right, and getting at least 3 action scenes into each issue of the story. But in general, the things that inspire me are stories I might have been told, or memories, photos. A lot of visual media really inspires me. Watching lots of action films or reading adventure stories. And I also think very visually. So a lot of information kind of flashes into my mind. So there'll be like a scenario with a particular character or a particular setting, and then I just kind of puzzle it all together in the story structure until everything's there and ready to go. So to answer the question again, inspiration can come from multiple different sources, but the brief is very, very important in answering the call to write for the Phantom.
A lot of good responses coming out of you, Julie. A lot of times when we actually see a new creator, or we see a new Phantom creator or new Phantom writer come on the scene, we get to see what they bring to the table. We get to see what sort of Phantom stories they'll bring to the table, what sort of new aspects they'll bring to it, and what sort of creative insights and going paths to where they create their Phantom stories. Now, the third question is, what are the other types of stories have you wrote?
What other types of stories have I written? The genre I predominantly write in is fantasy, and I'm actually known for writing mermaid stories. A lot of my earlier work had lots of mermaid characters in it, and I have a pretty big readership in America, the Netherlands, Norway, and Germany, as well as Australia, for people who like mermaid stories. But these are not just ordinary mermaid stories. They're like really big, epic adventure kind of stories with, you know, romance thrown in, and lots of supernatural stuff thrown in as well. So that's my predominant audience. And of course, with the Phantom, that's the action adventure genre, which I'm having lots of fun with. And I love watching thrillers and adventure films, so that's right up my alley. The other genre I'm kind of experimenting with at the moment and kind of shocking myself is horror. And the reason I'm shocking myself is I don't gravitate to horror because I'm like a real scaredy cat. I get really scared in horror movies and you know, reading horror books. But it's turning out that I'm actually quite adept at writing horror stories. Not the slasher variety, but kind of more complex, you know, horror, all driven by human nature and the horrors of human nature. So that's the areas and the types of stories that I write.
So question number 4 is, what approaches do you use when you are writing? What approaches do you use when you are trying to find something to write? So basically what I'm talking about here is, what sort of approaches do you use when you're writing a Phantom story, or you're writing another story that doesn't consist of the Phantom, but you're getting the research, you're doing the research, you're basically finding the right approaches to try and write the story and then go on and write it. So yeah, that's basically what the question's asking.
What approaches do I use when I'm writing stories? It depends on what angle I'm coming in on. I come up with a premise or a concept, and then it kind of grows. It's like a seed that starts to flourish and grow. And to water that seed, sometimes I do a lot of research. For example, I think research is very important no matter what genre you work in. Even when I was working in fantasy, I still did a lot of research and watched a lot of nature documentaries and really kind of grounded that fantasy work. With the Phantom, for example, there was a lot of research into the first story, from anything from costuming to vehicles to any kind of other transportation to things like guns and all kinds of things. So also wildlife as well, understanding how animals work and plants in the jungle, all kinds of things. So for me, research is a really critical part of my writing process. And the other thing that I do is I just allow my creativity just to take over. And it's like it's like relaxing and daydreaming, and then just opening this kind of gateway to your creative mind. And I just let things flow out, and I don't censor them. I just let them all pour out. Some of the ideas I'll keep, some of them I'll reject, and ultimately they all come together in a polished piece with structure.
So in question number 5, we have, in this question number 5, in what opinion do you think in first impressions the Phantom is different than other comic book characters? So basically what I'm saying is, what is your opinion? What is your basic opinion on what the Phantom is different in first appearances, first impressions? What is the Phantom different from other comic book characters? So, we've been talking about this for a while. We've been talking about this for like a couple of weeks now. And we're going to be talking about it again right now. So, the petition. So, the petition has been going on for like, what, a couple of years now. It really hasn't been going that well. So, I've just been trying to promote it a little bit. And if you would like to basically sign the petition, I know a lot of people already have, and I know a lot of people may be sick and tired of me talking about it. But if you would like to, if you would like to sign the petition, get this petition rolling, and if you would like a new Phantom film of epic proportions, then you can sign the petition down here in the link down below, or you can get it right here at the link right here that I put it every time. So if you would like to sign the petition once more, you can go down the description down below, or I'll be putting the link right here.
In my opinion, what first impressions do I think make the Phantom different from other comic book characters? Well, the first thing is I'm fascinated at the fact that he was developed 2 years before the first official superhero being Superman. So the Phantom came out in 1936. Some people will argue that he's technically not a superhero because he hasn't got any superpowers, but I stand on the other side of the debate, which is I think he is a superhero. And the fact that he relies on his physical strength and his intelligence and his fighting ability, but also for his ability to kind of, I suppose, outwit, outplay, and outlast all of his enemies, and which is the tagline from Survivor. And Survivor is one of my favourite, well, it is my favourite reality show of all time. So I think that's really amazing about the Phantom, that he can just use all these inner resources that he's developed over his lifetime in conjunction with, all his mentors as well, one being his father and all the people who live in the jungle and beyond that. I think that that's really quite extraordinary. I also like his intensity. I've never really seen him smiling, though I do suspect he's got a very, very good sense of humour. And I think he's a very, very masculine character as well, a very male masculine character. So he's got a lot of presence and a very masculine energy when I look at him on a comic book page or I read his story in a particular comic book or graphic novel. So they're all the features that I really gravitate to and really admire and really like.
Question number 6. So, question number 6 is talking about, did you ever read The Phantom when you were younger?
Did I read The Phantom? I'm presuming when I was growing up. The answer is yes and no. I did read The Phantom in the Sunday papers when I was a kid, in the strips, and I used to love it. Used to look forward to it every week. Because I lived in a rural area, there weren't any comic book shops around, and the only place you could actually get comics was at the petrol station. So once a week, my father would drive myself and my brother and sisters down to get petrol, and there'd be this little kind of newsagent section within the service station, and there'd be all these comics in there. And so sometimes I would grab some of the Phantom comics and bring them home and read them. And in fact, just recently I found a stash of them in my comic book collection, so I was really thrilled about that. And these were some older ones from, I think, the 1970s. So that kind of answers the yes part of the question. And then comes the no part of the question. or the no part of my answer, I should say. And that is, through my teenagehood, I wasn't exposed to comics whatsoever, and except for a couple of graphic novels in our school library, and they were European ones. So there was kind of this hole in my comics development as far as the Phantom goes, and as far as other titles go, including other kind of superhero titles. So I didn't really rediscover the joys of comics until after I'd finished my professional writing degree. And then I was reintroduced to them and started, reading voraciously, and found that I actually had the makings of a comic book writer, and it actually came quite naturally to me. So hope that answers the question. And now I have to make up for lost time. I'm reading lots of vintage titles and a lot of the modern titles that are coming out of Frew publications, as well as some from overseas. And I've also read quite a few prose Phantom stories as well. So that's where I'm at with the Phantom. So I've got a lot of reading to still do, and I'm really, really enjoying it.
Question number 7. What is your history in the profession of being a writer? So, what is your history in the profession? Have you been working a long time in the profession? Have you been working long time in the industry where I with your name popping up in Phantom stories, I hadn't even known who you were. And I'm just wondering what's the history you have in the profession and where you came from being like a normal writer on the street to being a writer where you're basically getting recognition for writing your Phantom stories and other stories that you may have written.
What is my history as a writer? Well, as I mentioned previously, I began writing my first comic book series in about the early 90s, and that was published around the mid 90s in America. That was followed by a 3-part miniseries for Image Comics in America as well. And in between, I contributed to various graphic novel anthologies, and most recently, I also came up with a new superhero character, a female, along with Marcelo Baez, who's the artist on the project. And that came out in a book that was published by IFWG Publishing called Super Australians, which was edited by Christopher Sequeira, who's also a Phantom writer. In the last few years, I've also turned to prose, and I've had 3 short stories published in anthologies published by IFWG Publishing in Australia, and they were all edited by Chris Sequeira as well. The first one was a Sherlock Holmes book called Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Was Not, and the premise of that book was that Sherlock Holmes did not work with Dr. Watson, his usual companion. Rather, he was working with a famous doctor from either history or from fiction. The second book through IFWG just recently came out, and that's Cthulhu Deep Down Under, Volume 3, which is in the horror genre. And I've also written a story that'll be out later on in the year in an IFWG publication edited by Chris called Dracula Unfanged, which is kind of an alternate look at Dracula. Also recently, just in fact the last week or so, I've been published in another Sherlock Holmes anthology, which was published in America by Bellinger Books, and that collection is called Sherlock Holmes of Baking Street. So all the stories have a food theme, which is completely up my alley because I love watching MasterChef and I like cooking. Anyway, that kind of covers what my history as a writer has been up to this point of time.
So in question number 8, if you had to go back to writing a new Phantom story, what would it be like? So what sort of creative influences would you be using? What sort of things would you be writing in your own Phantom story? And of course, what would it be like? It's sort of like an if question. What sort of coulda woulda been right? So we're just going to take a break from here. And if you hadn't noticed, in the last couple of weeks, we've been Phantom Cave obviously has been putting out a new Phantom Cave website, and that website has been going live for the last couple of weeks. So if you would like to basically check the website out, I'll be putting a link down here in the description down below, and I'll also be putting the link up here. So we at Phantom Cave are we're going to be doing new articles, it's already got an article on the history of Phantom Cave and all that sort of stuff. We're going to be doing some article. We've already done a published article on the new Phantom petition, and we've also done an article on Grange Wallace. So yeah, we're going to be doing all that. And if you would like to basically check the website out, I'll be putting the link down in the description down below as always, and I'll be putting the little link here.
If I had to go back to writing a Phantom story, what would it be about? Well, in my initial discussion with Glenn Ford, he asked me to send him a number of pictures, and so I did exactly as he asked, and he accepted a number of them. So there are a bunch of Phantom stories kind of in the wind, and I actually have finished a 4-part series called The Return of the Golden Circle, which is a sequel to a story that came out that was set in Paris, and it came out around the late 30s, early 40s or so, and it was a fantastic story with this all-woman criminal gang with a character that a lot of Phantom fans really loved called Fifi in there. So that's the series at the moment that Wendell Cavalcanti is working on. And the one that I'm going to be writing after that, which Glenn has approved, will be called Ghost Wreckage. And I'll be working on that in the last part of this year. And that will be a Diana Palmer story, but I'm not going to tell you what the central theme of that is about. You're going to have to discover that for yourself. And then I've also got a bunch of other Princess Sin stories in the mix as well. So hopefully I'll be working on the Phantom for a long while, pending all of your approval, I hope. And that I really hope that you like them, because I'm giving them a slightly more contemporary bent than you might be used to. But I'm so enjoying writing them. It's like been an absolute joy to work on them. It's been a lot of work. There's a lot of research involved, but it really is one of the kind of pinnacle moments in my life as a writer, and also as a person as well. So I really thank Frew and Glenn Ford for giving me this incredible opportunity. I feel very blessed.
So, how's it going, guys? We finished all the questions up. We finished the questions up with question 8, which was if you had to go back to writing and all that sort of stuff. If you would like to subscribe, if you would like to check out more of Julie Ditrich's work, then I'll be putting links down below. I'll be putting links to her website and all that stuff. And hopefully, let's hope that I can get some exclusive images. Nah, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that? But anyways, if you'd like to subscribe to the Phantom Cave YouTube channel, as always, keep Phantom Caving, and we'll see you next time on the Phantom Cave Community Interviews, where we're going to be interviewing, we're going to try and be interviewing a King Features syndicated person from King Features. I'm going to try and do that. I'm going to try and do it. I got an email from them for the last, day or so? I got an email from them, and I emailed them, and it's in the go. It's in progress, people. So if you would like to subscribe to the Phantom Cave YouTube channel, if you would like to get the know-how on how the Phantom is going through all different life forms and all different stages of your life, then please subscribe down below, and there will be bigger and better things coming to Phantom Cave every week. So let's get going and let's go.